I'm here. Alright, I'm just waiting further to see if there's I'm waiting for a viewer or two. Screw it.
Justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Sex and race, because they are easy, visible differences, have been the primary ways of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups, and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends.
Hey, and welcome to Rainbow Shelter News. Today, on this August, I've already forgotten the date, 16th day of the show, it is surprisingly not the worst week. It's been pretty bad. Hi, Jinx Tiamat. And also, yes, trees, trees, trees. Trees, trees, trees. Trees, trees, trees. Trees, trees, trees. Yes. Thank you. But yeah, and just as a forewarning, there may or may not be a show next week because I need to take a week off for self-care reasons. Although that being said, I will probably try to work on stuff. I might have the green screen up and working tomorrow. I might do that. Anyways, and a week off might give me some time to get some other stuff done. But yeah. Anyways. Today is a relatively light week, too. I know this is a bit of a shock. Yeah, so let's get started with a little bit of grim news. Oh, wrong thing. Haha! There we go. Teddy Ray, comedian, Comedy World mourns loss of 32-year-old comedian. Now, I'm not super familiar with Teddy Ray, but I'm sure it's important enough for there to be an article about it, so it's important to some people. So, comedian actor Teddy Ray, best known for his viral memes and appearance on Russell Simmons' comedy platform, All Def Digital, has reportedly passed away. The LA Times reports that on the morning of Friday, August 12th, deputies from the Riverside County Sheriff's Office responded to a call about a death at a private residence in Rancho Mirage in California. The deceased has since been confirmed as Teddy Ray, whose cause of death is currently unknown. Teddy Ray recently celebrated his 32nd birthday on July 30th. So almost exactly 5 years younger than me, which is sad. But yeah, I'm sure Teddy Ray will be missed, and it's a It sucks that this happened. So, off to Alabama. Immediately right into some surprisingly not bad news. That's what this week is. It's surprisingly not bad news. This week is actually a good week to give you hope in humanity. So, Native American remains, burial objects to be returned in Alabama. Nearly 110,000 Native American human remains are still in the possession of colleges and museums across the U.S. The Alabama Department of Archives and History is beginning to process of returning the remains of Native Americans and their funerary objects held in its archives. The department also announced that it has removed Native American funerary objects from displays where the artifacts had sat for years, viewed by school groups and other visitors. The Associated Press news agency reported last month that 870,000 Native American artifacts, including nearly 110,000 human remains, are still in the possession of colleges, museums, and other institutions across the United States, according to data maintained by the National Park Service. So, America is not one to really care much about indigenous people historically, and I'm surprised, of all places, Alabama was one of the states that did it. The origins of those materials and the way they came into our possession is really quite problematic from today's perspective, Steve Murray, the director of the Alabama Department of Archives and History, said on Thursday. We very much honor and agree with Native perspectives on what is and isn't a proper type of material to show in a museum exhibition, Murray said. The funerary objects were, quote unquote, the personal property of someone who was buried, and then that burial was later disturbed without permission. Yeah, the 1990 Federal Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act requires federally funded institutions such as universities to return Native American remains and cultural items to lineal descendants, Indian Times, and Native Hawaiian organizations. The return, however, has been slow to happen. Because of course it is. Like, were you supposed to expect indigenous people to be treated like humans? What? The first material to be returned to the American communities from the Alabama archives will be 37 sets of human remains and 349 associated funerary objects that were excavated from burials at two sites in Montgomery and Lowndes counties in the early 1900s, which is really, really messed up. The graves were people who lived in Alabama in the 18th century, although some date back to the 1600s. University of Alabama museums are the largest holder of Native American remains and artifacts in Alabama. So, this should, I mean, obviously, these crimes against these crimes should not have been committed, and definitely should not have been sanctioned by the United States government. But or at the very least given the okay by the United States government. But something is being done, which is a rare event. So, Giants baseball player Solomon Bates comes out as gay. So, relief pitcher has been out to fellow players since 2019, took advantage of his unexpected release from the organization to get personal. Yeah, because like I think more sports players just need to come out. I mean, obviously, I understand there's a lot of negative reasoning or negative pressure and reasons to not come out, but it really sports needs to stop being homophobic and whatnot. Anyways, minor league baseball player Solomon Bates came out as gay on Tuesday after being cut by the San Francisco Giants. Being gay in the sport and you don't know what comes at you, said Bates in an Instagram post. The 25-year-old relief pitcher, who's been out to fellow players since 2019, took advantage of his unexpected release from the Giants organization to get personal. I thank the Giants for giving me the opportunity to be myself and go out there and play the game that I love the most. I'm still in shock about what happened, but I'm not giving up on what I want to do. Bates was an 8th-round draft pick out of USC when the Giants picked him in 2018. His last game was Friday. Bates became baseball's second active player to come out publicly after Milwaukee Brewers farmhand David Denson in 2015. While no active Major League player has come out as gay, 2 retired players have. Former outfielder Billy Beane, now Major League Baseball's Senior Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and former Dodgers and A's hitter Glenn Burke. Both came out after after their playing careers ended. Solomon has made a lasting, important impression on his teammates over the course of his college baseball and minor league career. Beane said in a statement, "I appreciate his decision and courage to share this part of his story with baseball and our fans." Yeah, I mean, like this stuff just needs to get more normalized, so that people stop being jerks, or at the very least are less likely to be jerks about random facts that are unimportant for baseball. Anyways, so Bates logged at 4.02 ERA and 23 relief appearances with Double-A Richmond in 2022 before being released on Tuesday. "I haven't been out as my complete self because I've been hiding myself," he told Outsports in an interview after the cut. "I am a masculine man who loves the sport of baseball, and now I want to open up doors for gay athletes like me. I'm just thinking about my next team," Bates added. "Life is good right now. I'm confident I'll be with a new team in the next few days." Yeah, that's just like I said, there is a surprising amount of good news this week. Sports ball is played by all kinds of people, yes, and I'm just I mean, there's still bad news. Don't get me wrong. There's bad news. Look, Florida is a lot of bad news, but California should provide free meals for all public school students, which that is so impactful. I know. So when I was growing up, I had I think I had limited free meals until high school, when I think my mom made what got to the sort of in between thing where you're too poor to live especially successfully, but rich enough that the school considers you too rich to get free food. But no, I definitely think there should be more easily accessible places to get free food, and definitely public schools should have free food. According to ABC 10, the Golden State has officially implemented its Universal Meals Program, an ambitious initiative that will offer free breakfast and lunch for every public school student, regardless of their family's income. And those family income things are rarely updated enough, and it creates like a weird divide. Education leaders say the statewide program comes at a crucial time as many families endure financial struggles due to inflation. I mean, I wouldn't say due to inflation personally. Obviously, I would say due to the nature of the capitalistic system, which is against increasing the wages of people. I think Cody Johnson did a good video on inflation in Some More News, kind of explaining the mentality that a lot of capitalists have and why they have it, with regards to inflation and not wanting to pay people more and all sorts of stuff. Building on the historic budget investments for our California students in schools, Universal Meals is one of 7 key pillars for transforming schools designed to help students heal, recover, and thrive while maximizing this once-in-a-generation opportunity to break the cycle of educational inequity, including nutrition insecurity, said Nicholas Filipas, spokesperson for the California Department of Education. In addition to providing free meals for California's 6 million plus students, officials announced they'll also forgive all outstanding lunch debts, which, according to the 2021 Associated Press report, a family of 4 was required to make less than $34,000 a year to qualify for free lunch and less than $48,000 a year for reduced price benefits. The outlet states the limits are subject to annual shifts as they are based on federal poverty data. The California Department of Education outlined 3 key pillars to ensure the program is a success. Pillar 1, California's state meal mandate is expanded to include both a nutritiously adequate breakfast and lunch for not just needy children, but all children each school day. Pillar 2, high poverty schools will be required to participate in a federal provision. I don't know what they mean by that. Pillar 3, the California State Legislature allocates funds to provide additional state meal reimbursement to cover the cost of the Universal Meals Program. These meals must continue to be nutritious and comply with federal meal standards for the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program, Felipe said. In order for schools to receive the additional state reimbursement for universal meals served to all students regardless of their individual eligibility. The program will officially launch in the upcoming 2022 and 2023 academic year, which this is good. I mean, obviously it's just one small step towards improving a lot of things in life, but this is still good. Now for the bad news in California. 2 good news, 1 bad news. Not bad. So, well, no, kind of good. So Sacramento settles with parents of Stephen Stefan Clark, unarmed black man killed by police. City of Sacramento has reached a $1.7 million settlement with parents of Stefan Clark, the 22-year-old unarmed black man, who was shot and killed by police in 2018 as he was running into his grandmother's backyard. Because of course. Anyways, under the terms of the agreement, the city's insurer will pay Mr. Clark's parents $1.7 million, official announced on press release on Friday. The Clark's family has agreed to the settlement and brings an end to the legal action. A 2019 settlement provided $2.4 million for Mr. Clark's two children, and a later court ruling left his parents as the sole remaining plaintiffs. Yeah, it's... So, obviously, this doesn't undo what the police did, but the fact that there is reimbursement helps to... I don't. It helps to put money in black communities in America. But yeah, it doesn't undo what was done, nor does it fix things. Yeah, shot because of holding a cell phone instead of a gun. Obviously. So, Florida bans Medicaid coverage for gender-affirming healthcare. This is not going to be a shock, I know. The Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration has finalized new rules banning healthcare providers from billing the state's Medicaid program for gender-affirming care. The new rule will take effect on August 21st. Under the new rules, puberty blockers, hormone therapies, and surgical procedures for the treatment of gender dysphoria will not be covered for patients of any age. Lambda Legal, Southern Legal Council, Florida Health Justice Project, National Health Law Program, and other LGBTQ and health rights groups released a joint statement decrying the move. Quote, unquote, ignoring thousands of public comments and expert testimony, Florida's AHCA has finalized a rule that will deny Medicaid coverage for... Sorry, that was my phone. Anyways, has finalized a rule that will deny Medicaid coverage for all medically necessary gender-affirming care for both youth and adults, the statement read. This discriminatory and medically unsound rule, oof, sad but not surprising, yeah, will take effect on August 21st, 2022, putting trans people in jeopardy of losing access to critical gender-affirming healthcare and services. Now, so HRT costs about $100 a month. And so there are going to be plenty of people who can't afford it. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jinx Tiamat. Yes, inflation somewhere news. Feel free to check the link later. You know what? I'm going to add it to my links to make sure I link it in the episode, since I did reference it. The change was first proposed in June based on a report commissioned by Florida's AHCA, primarily on the effects of gender-affirming care on children. The report's findings contradict the overwhelming consensus of all major medical organizations. Gender-affirming care for both adolescents and adults has been endorsed by the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychiatric Association, and many other professional groups, as necessary and frequently life-saving for trans individuals. Treatments for children rarely, if ever, involve surgery, according to experts. Yeah, no, it's just puberty blockers, which puberty blockers are medically necessary for children who have early puberty and children who have elements of gender dysphoria and want to wait a bit to figure themselves out, and back and forth conversations happen with therapists and other experts. Anyways, last week, Florida's Board of Medicine voted to begin the process of adopting a new standard of care for trans individuals, which could ban gender-affirming care for minors in the state outright. You mean Florida detransition rates are going to spike? Yeah, the thing about detransitioning, I agree with you, Jingstuma, and obviously detransitioning in the sense of if people can't afford it, they can't continue to transition or whatnot temporarily, but that doesn't stop them from being trans. It just stops them from being out with regards to detransitioning. Anyways, the new rules proposed by Florida's health department in April will prohibit gender-affirming surgical procedures, medications like puberty blockers and hormone therapy, and any other procedure that alters primary or secondary sexual characteristics for the treatment of gender dysphoria for patients under 18. Even though gender-affirming surgery is not performed on minors, they would also institute a mandatory 24-hour waiting period for adults seeking gender-affirming care. At least 2 other states attempted similar Medicaid bans, had them knocked down by federal judges. In 2019, a federal judge ruled that Wisconsin's Medicaid program must cover gender-affirming care. In West Virginia, earlier this month, U.S. District Court Judge Robert C. Chambers overturned the state's rule, which had denied coverage for gender-affirming care since 2013. Yeah. Detransition is valid, but cutting off access to meds is not a choice. Yeah. White Florida teacher quits after school removes posters of iconic black leaders from his classroom. I know this is a shock that not only is Florida transphobic and homophobic, but also is racist. Did you know that Florida's racist? Michael James, a man who taught at O.J. Sims Elementary School in Pensacola, Florida, is sounding the alarm on what led him to quit just before the start of the 2022-2023 year. James alleges that a school staff member went out of her way to remove posters of prominent African-American leaders like Harriet Tubman, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., George Washington Carver, and Barack Obama. And by the way, there are several other black people I would argue, me personally would argue, should be there. Obviously Malcolm X. Malcolm X made a major positive influence, even though he had problematic aspects of his personality. I mean, Barack Obama. If you're gonna have Barack Obama, you gotta have Malcolm X to counter Barack Obama. Problematic in different ways. Anyways, a school staff member went out of her way to remove those posters from his classroom bulletin board, an action that the teacher, who is white, is condemning as racist. It really floored me, James said of the incident, according to Pensacola News Journal. I've been teaching special education for 15 years, and it just really floored me when she did that, he added, referring to the unnamed school staff member described as a behavior analyst who took down the posters in questions. It's worth noting that James chose to feature the posters in his classroom because of the predominantly black neighborhood surrounding the elementary school. He wanted to inspire his students by highlighting prominent figures in African American history. Florida Department of Education is moving away from calling slavery slavery, so yeah. I think that one got shut down, but yeah. James, a 61-year-old from Alabama, ultimately wrote to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Oh, yeah, like the Florida governor would care about, Ron DeSantis would care about it. Over the situation earlier this week, he resigned from O.J. Sims Elementary shortly after that, just one day before the start of the school year. In his email to DeSantis, James recalled 2 school employees helping him set up his classroom, which included a classroom bulletin board containing an array of black leaders alongside the Pledge of Allegiance. I was sitting down in one of the children's chairs, cutting something out, and I turned around and saw her start taking something off the bulletin board, James recalled, according to the Pensacola News Journal. She says something along the lines of, "It wasn't age appropriate," something like that. Oh, a behavior analyst? That explains much. Wait, why? What's special about behavior analysts, Jinx T-Mat? But yeah, am I to believe Escambia County School employs those that dislike African Americans and are against swearing allegiance to these United States of America? Is there dislike of anything that states one nation under God in it? The teacher added in his email, which was also sent to the school superintendent. Our office was made aware of this employee's resignation and his stated reasons for resigning very early in the morning, Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. Escambia County Public School spokesperson Cody Strother said in a statement, according to the Pensacola News Journal, "If these allegations are deemed factual, we will certainly take corrective action, as is our aim that all of our teachers feel valued and supported." Now, that is probably BS. Behavioral analyst equals ABA professional. Yeah. Ugh. The Hill reports the school district shares a different side to the story, alleging that the materials were removed solely because only quote-unquote state-required curricular materials are allowed in the bulletin board. Yeah, I don't believe that. The behavioral analyst, oh god, behavioral analysts said they liked it, but it was just too complicated on letters on the posters. I'm not sure. It isn't stated. Well, let me see I need to see the picture. I'm not sure there are words on the I want to see the poster because based on the description, if it's just posters with imagery, that's not complicated. Text. This is a reality of Ron DeSantis' Florida. A teacher in a predominantly black community comes into their classroom to see posters of historically black American heroes, including President Obama, being taken down for being inappropriate. Chris said in a statement, yeah, it's just... yeah, behavioral analysts should not make curriculum decisions outside of specific IEPs anyhow. That's outside her purview. Yeah. So, a trans teen in South Florida was the victim of a second brutal anti-LGBTQ attack. Last year, a video of classmates beating 6th grader Chad Sanford drew national attention. A year later, Sanford, now 14, was again brutalized for being openly trans. Sanford said that a group of young people lured her out of her home on the pretext of hanging out. Once outdoors, Sanford said, they came behind me and jumped me. Two juveniles were arrested for simple battery and public orders crime prejudice. Public Information Officer Claudine Caro wrote in a statement, the juveniles were transported to the Juvenile Assessment Center. Investigation is reportedly ongoing and could lead to more arrests as well as federal hate crime charges. Civil rights attorney and former prosecutor Melba Pearson, who now works for FIU's Center for Administration of Justice, says the teens should receive hate crime charges, but she doesn't think incarcerating the attackers will solve the issue. And yeah, I think they need counseling, she said. I think they need to be held accountable, whether it be through community service, other aspects, but they need to learn that this behavior is wrong because they were taught this somehow. They didn't just wake up one day and decide to attack someone because they're trans. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of F slurs apparently being used in that, but yeah, it's and obviously this says increased suicidal thoughts in the victim and because of not feeling safe, which understandable. So more Florida, because Ron DeSantis can't be the only awful one. So a member of Florida Democrats renounced support for candidates seeking statewide office after anti-LGBTQ and anti-abortion social media posts surfaced. Agriculture Commissioner candidate Naomi Esther Blemmer distanced herself from the posts, but not before supporters, including Florida's only out state senator, bailed on her campaign. She's in the running for the Democratic nomination in a three-way primary. As a strong voice for reproductive freedom and LGBTQ plus rights, I found Naomi Esther Blemmer's past comments unsettling as they've come to light, tweeted State Senator Chevron Jones. These comments run counter to my record of protecting and advancing the rights of Floridians, and I've retracted said support from her campaign. Blemmer says that she's been smeared with fake emails, websites, social media accounts, and slandering tweets. When they go low, we go high. Nevertheless, the attacks have continued on every side. Most recently, one of my opponents accused me of being against a woman's right to choose. Consequently, I'm running to communicate my values to the voters. I've always been Yeah, she's pro-choice, but like, um, in one, she defended Minister Kim Burrell after she drew fire in 2017 for a homophobic church sermon. Same year, she also shared a video from a quote-unquote ex-homosexual. Yeah, that's not good. As video came to light, people had issues with that. But yeah, something tells me this is likely not actually necessarily yeah, I there's been too many awful people in Florida. So, Idaho forced to pay over $320,000 for passing anti-trans law it knew was unconstitutional. The state of Idaho has been ordered to pay $321,224.50 in legal fees because of an anti-trans law it passed in 2020 that had already been ruled unconstitutional. In 2018, U.S. Magistrate Judge Candy Dale ruled that it was unconstitutional for the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare to completely block trans people from correcting the gender marker on their birth certificates. That case was brought by a trans woman who is called two slurs, the T slur and the F slur, at a Social Security office when she showed them her birth certificate. In 2020, State Rep. Julianne Young introduced a bill to ban changes to birth certificates outside of a narrow set of exemptions. She claimed that the birth certificate is a quote-unquote historical document, and that allowing trans people to have birth certificates that reflect who they are threatens women. Oh yes, it's always secretly must be a threat to women for trans people to have rights. Obviously. Clearly my rights affect the rights of Jinx Tiamat negatively. How? Anyways, there's an ongoing discussion about this, but I will tell you as a woman who is aware of the crime statistic. Oh god. They're bringing up the crimes of men against women to justify anti-trans stuff. This is classic TERF arguments. It's a false equivalency. They're not actually they're using data that has nothing to do with anyone who's trans to justify their position against trans women. Oftentimes trans men are ignored. Later in 2020, Judge Dale ruled that IDHW had to follow her ruling and let trans people correct the gender markers on their birth certificates. The plaintiffs not only succeeded in getting the state to follow the Constitution, but they asked the court to have the state pay their attorney's fees. Instead of getting the nearly $450,000 that they initially requested, Dale awarded them $321,000, $321,224.50. The ruling would not have surprised opponents of the 2020 bill. State Rep. John Gannon said at the time that would be a legal disaster and that would open the state up to an expensive losing lawsuit paid for by the taxpayers, since a federal judge had already ruled against it. Yeah. Yeah, screw it. today we've learned that Social Security office in Idaho is the second worst place for people behind literally any DMV office. Yeah, I mean, at least there was a settlement, and that stuff was properly addressed. But it's still, yeah, it's still awful. I'm sure the DMV in Alabama or Georgia or possibly Texas. I know I've had friends. I've had a friend in a southern state get called the T-slur for showing up at or ending up in a medical place because of attempted suicide. And she was called slurs. So yeah. It hard to say. Oh, also, I forgot to point out, as for the historical document, with birth certificates, the original birth certificate is only sealed. It's not actually gotten rid of, and the new birth certificate is then presented, similar to what happens in adoption cases. The same thing happens in adoption. Anyways, former Louisville police officer will plead guilty in Breonna Taylor case. So, Kelly Goodlett, a former Louisville Police Department detective charged for her alleged role in March 2020 killing of Breonna Taylor, plans to plead guilty. The New York Times reports Goodlett, 35, confirmed the plea with her attorney during an online court hearing Friday and is scheduled to appear August 22nd before U.S. District Judge David Hall to enter her plea. Goodlett has since been released on a $10,000 bond with Judge Regina S. Edwards in the U.S. District Court of Western District of Kentucky, ordering her to give up her passport and remove all firearms from her house. I think the weirdest thing that happens in a DMV office is that you can't be drunk during your photo for a driver's license. Surely you should look the way you're likely to look when pulled over. I mean, no. I don't know if I can pull off the panicked look well enough for the driver's license. Oftentimes, because of the time, it's just a look of boredom, not the panicked look that would likely occur if I was pulled over, especially because I don't have a driver's license. I just have a permit. So if I'm pulled over and there's no one else in the car with me, I'm in trouble. So Goodlett is charged with one count of conspiracy for her alleged role in falsifying an affidavit to search Taylor's apartment, which ultimately led to the 26-year-old's death. Earlier this month, the Justice Department announced federal charges against Goodlett, as well as 3 other former and current Louisville. If in doubt, kill me, please. It's a Monday look. You know, that's a good suggestion. So the charges against Goodlett, alongside former Detective Joshua Janes and former Sergeant Kyle Meany. By the way, Kyle Meany is just sounds like a meanie. Anyways, violated Taylor's Fourth Amendment right by searching her home. The federal charges announced today allege that members of the place-based investigations unit falsified the affidavit to obtain the search warrant for Taylor's home, and this act violated federal civil rights law, and that those violations resulted in Miss Taylor's death, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said at the time. Garland added, when those officers executed the search warrant, Miss Taylor was at home with another person who was in lawful possession of a handgun when officers broke down the door to Miss Taylor's apartment. That person, believing that intruders were breaking in, immediately fired one shot, hitting the first officer at the door. The officer was immediately fired a total of 22 shots into the apartment. One of those shots hit Miss Taylor in the chest and killed her. Goodlet's next court appearance will be August 22nd. But you aren't wrong for saying. What do you mean? Look of "Kill Me, Please"? It's a Monday. Is my normal Monday to my normal look on Monday or whatever? I assume that's my default, or just in general freaked out. So the death is being connected to a housing development project, which is I'm curious about. In the years since the police killing of Breonna Taylor, the 26-year-old woman who was fatally shot after a raid on her Louisville, Kentucky home, questions about the origin of the search warrant has dominated conversations. Now the community is learning that wasn't how the warrant was carried out, but why it was issued in the first place. 3 new officers, Kellyanne Goodlet, who just pleaded guilty, like I said, Joshua James and Kyle Meany, have been charged with federal crimes connected in connection with the killing of Taylor, including unlawful conspiracies, obstruction offenses, use of excessive force, and federal civil rights offenses, as the Department of Justice previously confirmed. Although Goodlet, Meany, and James were not present at the time of the raid, their alleged misconduct is being accused of initiating the events that eventually led to the fatal shooting. So, Goodlet, James, and Meany falsified information to get the warrant, alleging that Taylor was receiving illegal packages at the residence, despite allegedly knowing that information was false. So, the Elliott Avenue project is a development project. A document describing the project alleges that the neighborhood's quote-unquote social and urban fabric has deteriorated over recent decades due to high levels of disinvestment and crime. It also states that the Department of Louisville's Office of Community Development, the city's entity behind the project, in partnership with Keeping It Real, Inc., a local nonprofit partner, were intervening, quote-unquote, in an effort to stabilize and reinvigorate this residential community within West Louisville. Since the start of the project, the city of Louisville has acquired and gained control of several properties in the area, including 2424 Elliott Avenue, which was once the home of Taylor and her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover. After Taylor's death, the city was quick to secure Glover's rented home and got quite the deal for it, too. According to Wave, the city bought the home for $1. The estimated home value was more than $17,000, and the city's pending acquisitions in the area skyrocketed after they secured Glover's home. As of July 2020, just a few months after Taylor's killing, the project document stated that they had, quote-unquote, succeeded in gaining control of 26 properties with an additional 11 pending acquisitions in the area. Your brother has connected with the DVLA, the UK version of the DMV, and somehow got them to accept a picture of him holding a Labrador for his driver's license. Not a puppy, an 80-pound dog. It was during lockdown. They took what they could get, but it was only a temporary license. That's awesome. The attorney for Taylor's estate suspected foul play in the city's actions, alleged that the neighborhood's gentrification may have been the reason Glover was targeted and Taylor was killed. Oh, dear God. Racism involved again and problems in America? What? So the suit stated that the LMPD created a special unit, the Place-Based Investigations Unit, that focuses on, quote-unquote, certain areas which needed to be cleared for real estate development projects to proceed, according to WHAS 11. Sources also allege that the block on which Glover lived was an obstacle to the project's efforts, and that LMPD's Criminal Interdiction Division, which the PBI is under, went after the area to kickstart the development plan. Although some city lawmakers say the project and PBI have the neighborhood's best interests at heart, not every official agrees. Councilman Anthony Piagentini is skeptical about their intentions and has expressed his concerns and questions, struggling to figure out how this wasn't anything but driven by development. Piagentini said, correct that picture that I just painted. That seems to go from development to law enforcement action. Yeah, this is so wait, is he required to drive with a Labrador escort now? Because that would be amazing. He was required, but I don't think the dog went willingly. Okay, I am loving this dog news story. This doggo news story. In the comments. So, after Taylor's killed, Goodlett and Janes allegedly came up with a story to cover their tracks. She explained that they coordinated their tales via text and calls, as well as held a secret meeting in Janes's garage. When Joshua Janes and Kelly Goodlett met in the garage on the evening of May 17th, 2020, Joshua Janes relayed to Kelly Goodlett that they needed to get on the same page because they could both go down for putting false information in the Springfield Drive warrant affidavit, Goodlett's charging document states. Mainly because it wasn't his dog, but legally became his dog until license ran out. Well, immediately to darker news. 3 men killed and 1 injured in horrific hit-and-run incident outside a gay bar in Chicago. On Sunday, an atrocious hit-and-run crash killed 3 people and injured another on Chicago's South Side, one of the country's oldest black-owned gay bars, the Jeffrey Pub. Yeah, I mean, emotional stuff, understandable. Chicago police believe the incident started inside the Jeffrey Pub, where an quote-unquote ongoing altercation carried outside when someone jumped into a car around 5 a.m., running over the group in the street. Explicit clips of the hit-and-run incident show several bargoers grappling in the street when the silver car races down the dark road and hits 4 of them on impact. The disturbing video shows 3 of the victims' bodies flying in the air as bystanders screamed and stood back. Jeffrey Pub released a statement urging anyone with information as to who the driver is to come forward. So, suspect still unknown. Not Greg. The dog's name is Greg. He only answers to tacos. Tacos are pretty hard to find in England. Yeah. So, Louisiana. Same-sex couple has been told their child was banned from attending a private school because of their quote-unquote lifestyle choices. What, a conservative Christian church being homophobic? Who would have thought? So Jennifer and Emily Parker were recently informed their adopted child Zoe could no longer attend the Bible Baptist Academy during a meeting with the principal. The blow came just a week before she was set to attend after finishing pre-kindergarten. The Louisiana couple adopted their 5-year-old niece on the 3rd of August after she lost both her parents, according to Jennifer in an interview with KPLC. So, she lost her father, she lost her mother, and now she's losing her school, which she loves very much, she said. According to the couple, they had finished preparations for her first day at kindergarten, but were informed after the fact that school officials thought the circumstances were not a good fit. The pastor met with us in the meeting room and started talking about gender identification and that they teach the words of the Lord and marriage was between a man and a woman, Emily Parker said. We are protected by federal laws. In a statement, the school reporters told reporters that was committed to instructing and living in accordance with the teaching of the Bible and is committed to teaching students that marriage is between man and woman. Despite the setbacks from the situation, the couple said that they're grateful for the overwhelming support they've received in the aftermath, including offers from other Christian schools in the area. A blessing in disguise. We've had an opportunity to bring her to school, which is a little closer, and it's a new opportunity to make new friends. A few months ago, the Louisiana House Education Committee reinforced their acceptance of LGBTQ plus education schools after striking down a copycat of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, which aims to ban discussion of LGBTQ plus topics in school in a 7-4 vote on the 3rd of May. Republican representative and sponsor of the bill, Dodie Horton, told reporters that the move was in response to, quote-unquote, some teachers interjecting, quote-unquote, their own lifestyle choices in the classroom. The bill defines the line that has recently been blurred by some teachers to share their personal sexual identity and gender preferences with children. You can't not. I mean, like, if a woman has a husband, she's sharing that she's straight, possibly, or bi, or pan, or any number of things. I mean, technically not necessarily straight, but, like, it's, yeah. Yeah. So, Black family speaks out after Wire Park cancels birthday party for teens over feeling, quote-unquote, uncomfortable. So, an incident at a Lee Summit, Missouri park went viral this week with a video showing a black family not being granted entrance to the park. The footage shows the family speaking with a white woman who appears to work at the park, and either a security officer or a cop standing next to her, with much of the dialogue. While much of the dialogue can't be heard, you can hear one of the men from the family ask how they can, quote-unquote, cancel, quote-unquote, kid's birthday party and ask what the woman is uncomfortable with. The person taking the video repeatedly says, because we're black. He's also type 2 diabetic with an attitude problem. Yeah. So chocolate lab. Yeah. So Lee's Summit Parks and Recreation Department has since shared more information about the incident. Fox 2 reports the family spent $2,000 in advance on a birthday party for 250 guests at Summit Waves. The park canceling their reservation prompted the family to say they felt discriminated against. It appears we have been canceled simply because the park staff was uncomfortable with an event of black teenagers having a pool party to enjoy the end of summer, said Chris Evans, the teen's father. Yeah, they segregation in pools has been like a long-standing thing in America. Integration with pools is like a more recent thing. It's part of the reason why pools became less popular, I think. Anyways, safety pertaining to the anticipated crowd size and the potential impact it might have on party guests and the staff was the sole reason for the cancellation, LSPR said in a statement. It added that the family had promoted the event on social media, which wasn't included in the agreement with the park. A sincere apology is owed to the Evan family and our Lee's Summit community. Lee's Summit Parks and Recreation said in a statement, LSPR strives to be respectful and inclusive in an organization where all members of our community feel welcome and appreciated. Inappropriate language, social media posts, and behavior are not acceptable and will not be tolerated. According to Lee Summit Mayor Bill Baird, investigation is open. Unfortunately, statements were made by a Parks and Rec manager at Summit Waves that were inappropriate and insensitive, he said in a statement, adding that its probe revealed missed processes and miscommunications that led to the cancellation. The family has been refunded and offered a makeup party for no charge. So, at least they get a free party back. So, an armed man who attacked FBI office was worried communists would turn his kids trans. That's secretly, I don't know if you knew this, Jinx Tiamat and Quakernomics, but like, secretly, the reason I'm trans, clearly the socialist parents. I know they don't really distinguish in far too much of the United States between communists and socialists, but they couldn't have planned for security at reservations time, right? Yeah, no, they're awful. So, an armed man who was killed by police after he allegedly tried to attack an FBI field office in Cincinnati yesterday had a history of believing right-wing conspiracy theories, including the anti-trans idea that communists are forcing kids to transition. The man, identified by Ohio State Patrol as 42-year-old Ricky Schiffer, went to the FBI field office with an AR-15 rifle and a nail gun on Thursday morning. He fired the nail gun in the visitor center in an attempt to breach the office's security. He fled to his car, and after a chase by state police and a long standoff, he was killed by law enforcement officers. The real question is, why is Louisiana's flag have a pelican on it when surely Louisiana is known for racism, witches, ghosts, and being the Quebec of America? Yeah. Um, I don't know why. I don't pay attention to state flags. I don't even remember my state flags. But you have the non-trans siblings. Oops. Yeah, well, it's a 1 in 3 chance. Ohio State Highway Patrol spokesperson Lieutenant Nathan Dennis said that Schiffer raised a gun at officers when they opened fire on him. No officers were injured, and Schiffer was pronounced dead at the scene. Social media account with his name was found on Truth Social, the Twitter-like social media platform that Trump founded after he was banned from the real Twitter, potentially giving some insight into his motives. He identified himself as an electrician from Columbus, Ohio. people, this is it, Schiffer wrote this past Monday on the Truth Social account. The day that Donald Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI. Oh, that's why he took the FBI. That makes sense. I hope a call to arms comes from someone better qualified, but if not, this is your call to arms from me. He encouraged people to leave work tomorrow as soon as the gun shop / Army Navy store / pawn shop opens. Get whatever you need to be ready for combat. We must not tolerate this one. The FBI having a warrant and raiding Trump's place because the communists are turning people trans, and clearly the FBI are involved. In one tweet on a Twitter account with his name, he wrote, "We need to be ready for war against the communists who chemically neuter prepubescent children and call it gender transitioning, not bellyache about the arguments of 30 years ago. Save ammunition." The face where Republicans say, "We're trained gun users, we'd overthrow a tyrannical government." Then reality is still a Republican who has an AR-15 at home, leaves the gun, and brings the nail gun to the FBI. Then Republicans are shocked by his guilt. No, he brought the AR-15 and a nail gun. He brought both. I think the nail gun was to try to break through the bulletproof glass. I think that's the reason for the nail gun. Because FBI office and whatnot. But yeah. In response to a tweet by Marjorie Taylor Greene, Schiffer wrote, "Congresswoman Greene, they got away with fixing elections in plain sight. It's over. The next step is the one we used in 1775. In response to a tweet from Donald... Yes, that is that person's attitude. He probably had a similar quote before he grabbed the AR-15 and nail gun. I don't think it, well, obviously it didn't work out because he got killed, but his accounts on Truth Social and Twitter have been deleted. So, students speak on the administrative issues plaguing Tennessee's HBCUs. So, for the idea of a Christian bringing Jesus' favorite gun, the nail gun, as a weapon for it is ironic. Yeah, there are better guns than the AR-15. The AR-15 is like an old gun. Shh, don't tell them that. Anyways, I'm not, this is one of the ones where I'm not super aware of this, because this relates to historically black colleges and universities, but I was curious about this, because I try to, I want to listen to people and I want to understand, and this story relates, because it says that administrative issues plaguing Tennessee's historically black colleges and universities, so I do want to know. So, Tennessee Higher Education Commission is on a mission to help the state's historically black colleges and universities succeed, but which is HBCUs, succeed, but the organization's will the organization's strategic plan be enough? So they unveiled a 3-year plan that's focused on improving administrative capacity of Tennessee's 7 HBCUs. The capacity is very different at historically black colleges and universities, especially in Tennessee. Brittany Mosby, the state's director of HBCU Access, said during the Tennessee Higher Education Committee meeting back in July. 6 out of 7 HBCUs are private institutions, smaller staff, and multiple staff members wearing multiple hats. She continued, addressing how state's HBCUs are in need of more administrative support. I doubt he could spell irony. And also, I mean, okay, I thought I had an Iron Man 3 reference with potato guns, but I didn't, so I can't remember it. But I'm sure potato guns somewhere in there, and I wanted to talk about the power of potato guns. Potato guns run on hairspray, which explains a lot. Take potato, put potato in shotgun shells, freeze potato shotgun shells, load them, fire them, take out the enemy, and have freshly cooked tater tots at the end. I don't even know what to say to that. So, seemingly co-signing, I'm a junior with more credits than I need as a junior, and I'm still undeclared, Fensel revealed, not because I don't know my major, but because it's just so many hoops to get through to get my advisor. Fensel went on to tell the outlet, it's common for Fisk professors to take on administrative roles to help their students out. I think HBCU issues are pretty well known. I think they're just ignored in a way. To address the issues which have reportedly caused low graduation rates in some of the institutions in question, Fensel says Tennessee needs to provide more funding for its HBCUs so that more faculty and staff can be hired. However, with Tennessee having a history of underfunding institutions like Tennessee State University, it's unclear whether the state's 3-year plan will be enough. It's more centered on promoting HBCUs to students, families, and the community and policymakers, and encouraging partnerships with HBCU programs and initiatives. This subject comes out 6 months after Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced a plan to provide TSU with $250 million in funding, which is definitely good news for the institution. The initiative comes on the heels of the Office of Legislative Budget Analysis finding the state could owe TSU between $151 million and $544 million in land grant funding, according to the Tennessean. I don't know. So it sounds like historically black colleges and universities need more money to hire more people. That seems to be the gist of this, which, I mean, I guess it's unsurprising. I do love tots, but that seems overkill. Alternatively, we take out the violence, throw the potatoes really hard on an electrified chicken wire fence, and then you'll have French fries. I don't think that's how French fries are made. So, gay realtor launches website to help LGBTQ Texans flee the state. So, as Texas becomes a hotbed of anti-LGBTQ laws targeting trans youth and their families, Bob McCraney, a gay realtor in Dallas, has launched Flee Texas, a website that helps families find homes in more accepting states. As LGBTQI plus citizens of Texas, many of us feel at risk, the website says. If you feel the need to leave the jurisdiction of Texas, let us help you sell the property here and connect you with LGBTQI or ally agent in a better location of your choice. Actually, I might have to... I might add that to links for the YouTube version. That's not how they're made, but you could make them that way. I mean, fair. Mick Craney, the founder of Texas Pride Realty, has been a resident in Texas. Yeah, so he's seen the state get worse. While some people have accused him of capitalizing on the state's anti-LGBTQ climate to make money, he said that it's not about that. He pointed to realtors in other anti-LGBTQ red states who have started offering similar relocation services. A lot of people don't remember what it's like to be an illegal person, McRaney says. Families with trans kids need to get out of this jurisdiction now. In February, Governor Greg Abbott ordered the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services to investigate parents of trans kids for child abuse. Though the order has since been blocked by a state court, some parents of trans youth began fundraising to leave the state. Others formed Mothers Against Greg Abbott to challenge other anti-LGBTQ policies taking hold in the state. Yeah, things are bad, and at least some people are doing. But, like, on the other hand, a Texan town is protesting against one of the most anti-LGBTQ hate churches in the nation. So, a rainbow chalk drawing in the parking lot of the Steadfast Baptist Church of Watauga, Texas, just north of Fort Worth, bears the words, "No hate in Texas." Greg Abbott is the evil version of FDR, both disabled, one a base leftist, the other an evil vindictive jackass. I would argue that FDR wasn't even based or leftist. He was just, he just was aware enough of the problems to realize that, I mean, he was probably, FDR was probably left of center, but yeah, I don't think FDR was based or leftist, but did more. It was the closest thing to the closest person to a leftist in United States government, because that's how bad it is here. Oh, you're basing it on his idea for the second Bill of Rights? Fair. I don't know much about that. I might have to look that up. Jinx Dimash. FDR was left-ish. I mean, if FDR didn't... The thing is, FDR was put in a position where if he didn't do what he was going to do, there was going to be a socialist revolution in America. FDR essentially fueled neoliberalism to delay a revolution based off of the wealth inequalities. At least that's my opinion of the general acts of FDR. Now, that could be wrong, but yeah, I haven't looked into the idea for the second Bill of Rights. The church has been a certified hate group by Southern Poverty Law Center during Pride Month. Pastor Dylan Oz said, "Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with a crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. These people should be put to death. They should be lined up against a wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches." First off, not what God teaches. Just gonna say that now. He also said that all homosexuals are child rapists and that sodomites are responsible for school shootings. Church's leader expressed happiness at someone plowing their car into a crowd of Florida Pride attendees in 2021. So it wasn't in that state or in that city previously, but had to move there because of a lease problem and something about dangerous nuisance. Uh, he's calling for people like us to be shot. There's no way for us not to feel, think, and believe that it's just a matter of time before someone from the congregation decides to take up arms and do his bidding. And they're so close to our home, there's no way we can't be afraid of that. We're actually considering leaving the entire state. We just want to be somewhere where we can be who we are and unapologetically and feel safe and free. FDR's second Bill of Rights include the right to work, the right to an adequate income for food, shelter and recreation, farmers' rights to a fair income, freedom from unfair competition, monopolies, right to decent housing, right to adequate free medical care, and the right to Social Security, and a right to an education. Okay, fair. I did not. Fair, Quakernomics. To be fair, I have been. Some of my knowledge of FDR is also tinged with this. I might have to look up more to get a better opinion, but I understand where you're coming from now. Yes. Yes. Those are all absolutely necessary. Chief Robert Parker of the Watauga Police Department said that his officers have reviewed TFW, the Scottish economist, knows more about FDR than the American. Yeah, that. I mean, sometimes you need to learn stuff from different countries to get proper information because of the amount of propaganda in propaganda and conditioning in all of education. Hell, even the how close we were to socialist or communist revolution during the Great Depression, I had to learn from outside sources. Chief Robert Parker of the Watauga Police Department said the officers have reviewed the church's sermons on multiple occasions and found that its words are protected by the Constitution's free speech guarantees because the speakers haven't issued a specific direct threat actionable from one person to another. That's not freedom of speech. Skinner disagrees. That's vile, threatening, slanderous, dangerous language, and I don't think anyone should be protected just because they call themselves a church. Skinner is hardly alone in her opposition to the church. Her partner, Teresa, I'm not going to try to pronounce that because I'll probably slaughter it, has joined the protest, holding a colorful sign that says, Jesus didn't cast a stone. You can get the F out of my town. I know you know you're hurting your children by being here. These people are dangerous, I think. Local residents at least need to know that they're there. They're a cult, that's what they are. Yeah, so there are various pastors also against it, and yeah, so yeah, it's true that FDR was pressured by the rise of Huey Long in the South, but there's evidence that FDR did have these plans before Huey Long began to popularize them. Yeah, I mean, that is actually interesting info and good to know. Apparently I need to look up more into FDR. So, gay couple attacked by teens calling them monkeypox F-slurs. So, Washington, D.C., a gay couple was attacked on Sunday by a pair of teenagers who reportedly called them monkeypox F-slur. The couple said they were walking in the Shaw neighborhood when they encountered a group of teens who began calling them that stuff. According to Metro Weekly, Robert, 25, and Antonio, 23, were followed down the street by one of the teens. When Robert turned to confront him, the teen punched him in the forehead, knocking him to the ground. Second teen punched Antonio in the face. The first teen struck Robert again, breaking his glasses. An onlooker called the police, and most of the teens fled. However, two young women who had been with the group approached Robert and Antonio to apologize. One of them said their dad was gay, and it's messed up that they attacked us, but I was still pretty pissed at the whole incident, so I let them pass, Robert said. Police took the couple to the emergency room at Howard University Hospital, where they remained for 6 hours to ensure they didn't have concussions. Antonio also received stitches to his upper lip. I mainly feel shocked that this could happen in DC in broad daylight, only 3 or 4 blocks from a U Street, walking from a gay bar to public transit, said Robert. I've actually had more experience of homophobia in the past couple of months than I have ever before, just this summer alone, he continued. A few months ago, a friend of mine and I were on the metro coming home on the Red Line from a pool party. Some guy told us not to. He's just said homophobic things to us, saying that where he was from, they kill gay people or something along those lines. There's more overt homophobia here at Antonio, who's lived in DC since 2020. There are more altercations in the street and verbal comments from random people versus at home. So, like, and it does not help the phrasing and the focus on the monkeypox with relation to it having first noticeably spread in communities of gay men. So that phrasing of things actually might have caused more harm than good by the World Health Organization. So, when the ADA went into effect 32 years ago, there's optimism that technology would close the education gap for disabled students and other or disabled students and so on. The ADA went far beyond visible disabilities, promising life-changing protections to the neurodivergent. We, as neurodivergent people, know how educational technology can change lives and how word processors, spell check, and self-paced learning can let our brains thrive in ways traditional schooling never could. But we also see how emerging technology threatens to do the reverse, making school a harsher, less accessible environment. Today, across schools in the country, increasingly turn to techno-solutionist tools that harm students with invisible disabilities. Crude risk assessment tools mistake neurodivergent as harm to ourselves and others. Social media monitors evaluate posts about mental health and penalize students who need psychological evaluations as part of their individualized learning assessment. Remote and computer proctoring programs with biometric monitoring capabilities have become a mainstay during COVID pandemic. These programs flag students for cheating when they look away from their screens or make other quote-unquote suspicious movements. Yeah, no, it's no surprise that a lot of this is set up for neurotypical people and in such a way to completely ignore any disabled person. Anyways, this harbors real danger for people with disabilities. The vocal and facial expressions of a student who's disabled may differ from the quote-unquote normal baseline that a software program compares the student to, mislabeling their effect and singling them out for discipline. In many cases, remote proctoring programs do not even try to accommodate disabilities, denying test takers bathroom breaks, time away from their computer screen, scratch paper, and dictation software. This exacerbates disabilities, causes stress, and forces test takers to rush through the most important tests of their lives. This monitoring drives neurodivergent students into the shadows, deterring them from sharing their feelings, degrading their mental health, and reducing their willingness to seek help. Yeah. So, obviously, seeking cognitive evaluation, speaking openly about mental health should be encouraged, as well as healthy behavior, not punished. Like many with learning disabilities, we remember driving from therapist to therapist, assessment to assessment, desperately trying to uncover the correct diagnosis. Remember the sting and stigma when teachers singled us out for our spelling, reading, or being unable to sit still. Rather than being some magic crystal ball, the algorithms used by schools represent little more than a bias in a box. These algorithms crudely decide who is and is not quote-unquote normal by punishing students simply because their brains act differently. But the injustice doesn't end there. Oh god. The injustice doesn't end there. Making things worse, there have been an explosion of biometric policing technology in the last 30 years, and the same tools that police use in public are working their way into classrooms. For example, emotion recognition tension detecting software monitors students' biometric information, i.e., motor and focal tics, and then compares it to a trend line of behavior considered quote-unquote normal or favorable in a problematic attempt to track students' emotions and focus. In 2017, a French school introduced it. April Zoom considered adopting emotion artificial intelligence into its platform. So 32 years later, the full promise of the ADA remains unfulfilled because there is no enforcement of the ADA. In this country, there's no enforcement of it. So as we look to decades ahead, it's just there needs to be enforcement in the ADA to prevent stuff like this from becoming too big of a problem. So, in more news in America, Child Protective Services employee fired for allegedly encouraging 14-year-old girl to prostitute. Just let this sink in for a second there. An employee of Child Protective Services has been fired for allegedly advising a 14-year-old girl to be a prostitute. And they have it on video. So Keisha Basley, the young girl's mother, told Fox 26 Houston that her daughter was running away from home and having problems at school, prompting her to call family services. Basley said her daughter told the CPS worker had been telling her to do quote-unquote these things, and she decided to film her. My daughter told me that the worker had been telling her she should do these things, so she said she decided to video. Oh wait, that's the same sentence over again. The attorney for the family, Mike Schneider, said that the CPS worker almost threatened the young girl that her needs wouldn't be met if she didn't do what she was told, giving her an incentive to do so and almost a threat of not having needs being met. Schneider said she didn't do what this woman explicitly told her to do. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the world is messed up sometimes. So, Veteran ESPN reporter comes out as trans. Voepel decided to come out ahead of receiving the Naismith Hall of Fame's Kurt Gowdy Media Award in September. The prestigious gong is given to members of the media whose efforts make a significant contribution to basketball. Voepel shared on Twitter on Tuesday, 9th of August, they want to receive the great honor as his authentic self. He said reporters in sports media are lucky to tell stories of others' journeys, and they want to share new aspects of his own journey, like his pronouns and name. Fear can keep us paralyzed for decades, especially when we think we will lose all that's dear to us, including our career. At some point, you realize you need to have faith and that your happiness and well-being is worth pursuing, i.e. self-care. Reasons why I'm taking off next week. That's less ADA issue in education, more IDEA issues. Individuals with Disability Education Act is a piece of American legislation that ensures students with a disability are provided with a free, appropriate education. Gotcha. Voepel added he was grateful for terrific family and friends, societal progress, and to work for a company that supports all its employees. He joined ESPN in 1996 and has decided his prolific career to telling the stories of women's basketball. Several personalities, organizations, and teams across the sporting world congratulated Voepel, or whatever. WNBA, ex-Phoenix Mercury, Alexa Filippo, Joe Poznansky, Holly Rowe, Athlete Ally, yeah, so FAPE lawsuits are a big deal. Yeah. So AARP to Congress, stop forcing disabled workers to have less than minimum wage, or stop causing that bullshit. Stop it. When we wrote to lawmakers in the House and Senate this week and announced our support for a bipartisan bill that would close the loophole that allows some disabled workers to receive less than the federal minimum wage. Under current law, businesses and entities that get a certificate from government regulators can pay workers with certain disabilities, including people who are blind or have cerebral palsy, less than the federal minimum wage, impacting tens of thousands of workers across the country. Under the current law, businesses and entities that get the certificate from government regulators can... Oh, wait, yeah, I lost that. Among more than 10 million Americans aged 65 and older who were employed last year, 1 in 10 had a disability. More than half of nearly 30 million people with disabilities in the U.S. are at least age 65. Disabled people should not be treated differently or be paid less than non-disabled employees. Yeah, that BS is 14C is as in like $1 per hour. Yeah. So, influencer says she lost a 5-figure deal after brand was offended by a quote-unquote black girl living her best life. A social media influencer has sparked a heated debate after expressing her concerns about the struggles black content creators face when working with brands. Ebony Davis highlighted the issue in a video she posted on TikTok on Thursday. The influencer said she lost out on a 5-figure deal with an unnamed brand after going to Instagram to post a photo of herself modeling a popular fashion brand. The photo, first posted on Instagram on July 10th, shows that Davis tagged the Theophilio clothing brand when posting an outfit that partially revealed her bare behind. Although Theophilio was tagged in the picture, Davis did not close whether she was referring to the clothing brand. Theophilia's Instagram account then commented on the photo, replying with 3 heart emojis to praise the model. On her post Thursday, Davis said she later received a call from her agent who said the company thought the picture and caption were inappropriate. The influencer defended her use of the caption, saying, "It's a playful articulation of love for my man. It's been generally agreed on by the black community for decades that the N-word isn't derogatory," she added in her video. "It's a term of endearment." As for the photo, Davis said the picture shows a black girl living her best life. "Nothing inappropriate about it, especially not in the world we live today," she said. "For centuries, black women's bodies have been scrutinized, they've been picked apart, and they have been deemed unworthy. This is yet again an extension of this rhetoric. The only way someone else can deem this inappropriate," Davis says, "is if they projected their sexual desire onto me, or they projected their underlying judgments onto me, which we call prejudice," she said. So, the model said brands want access to her audience of mostly black women without actually having a full appreciation for black culture. Why is it that what's considered appropriate or professionalism is always adjacent to whiteness, she said. Davis added that brands want the activist part of her that is articulate, but they don't want to see the other side of her quote-unquote black girl magic. "The other side of me knows how to turn up and throw this ass." I mean, she does have a nice ass. We don't have to erase or hide any aspect of our personality in order to get these bags. If you can't handle me at my back that ass up, you don't deserve me at my I have a dream. Yeah, it's... most of her photos are like that, and they all of a sudden decided to. That's messed up. So, gay man wins lawsuit against Catholic employer who refused to give his husband health care benefits. So, a federal judge has ruled that the nonprofit Catholic Relief Services violated federal laws against sex discrimination when it denied health insurance benefits to the spouse of a gay employee, rejecting their argument that they have a religious right to discriminate in employment. The employee, identified in the court papers as John Doe to protect his privacy, claimed that after being told that the CRS's insurance plan provided health care coverage for employees and their spouses, regardless of sex, when he was hired in 2016, his husband's coverage was dropped in 2017 because same-sex spouses are not, in fact, covered. In her decision, U.S. District Judge Catherine C. Blake said that exemptions to federal laws against sex discrimination for religious-based organizations do not apply in this case because John Doe's job as a data analyst was not part of the Baltimore-based organization's religious mission. Yeah, the jury will now decide what damages John Doe is owed. So, people will die waiting. American system for disabled people is nearing collapse. Private agencies that provide services for various disabled people have long warned that without fresh state and federal funding, they would be unable to provide housing and staff support to the growing number of Americans who need care. The last 12 months, the COVID-19 pandemic's lingering effects on and once-in-a-generation inflation have turned dire predictions into sobering truths. And agency directors who have, for years, barely went along on shoestring budgets have done in 2022 what not long ago would have been unthinkable: close their doors. Todd Goodwin, CEO at John F. Murphy Homes in Maine, has closed 4 group homes in the past 18 months. Till this year, residents of a home that was closing would be transferred to another home with open beds, but in February he couldn't make the staffing ratios work. 2 residents who have come to rely on the cares agency provides would have to be sent back to their families. These are people who have been with us for years. We love them, Goodwin says. They're losing their homes through no fault of their own. We just have run out of options. In Connecticut, one provider has closed 10 group homes. In Oklahoma, dozens of residential units sit empty for want of staff. And in Texas, budgets are running increasingly in the red. 2 decades after the Supreme Court ruled states must provide care for disabled people in the least restrictive settings possible, home and community-based service providers are floundering. Group homes are not a solution either. Yes, I agree. It's just... group homes are not a solution, but I suspect group homes are better than homelessness. And given a lot of homelessness is a genuine risk for some of these people. Some of these people have families they can go to. Some don't, I'm sure. But yes, I agree that group homes are not a solution. Not even kind of. They can be better than nothing, yeah. When you say it's flush with cash thanks to juiced economy and federal stimulus, may need to act following years of inadequate funding that left an already fragile system on the verge of collapse. So, yeah, so this is, like I said, it's not group homes. I agree. Group homes are not a solution, but yeah. With everything else going on, all the ways people can end up homeless, it's just another way for disabled people to end up homeless. So, Starbucks accuses U.S. labor officials of helping workers unionize. If they had supportive family and resources, they wouldn't have been placed in the beginning. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, Starbucks is appealing to the U.S. National Labor Relations Board to temporarily suspend all union elections and at its United States stores after accusing the agency of interfering with and influencing election results at some of its cafe locations. The coffee giant on Monday accused National Labor Relations Board agents of helping the union group Starbucks Workers United win elections by manipulating the voting process and then collaborating collaborating to cover up the behavior, according to a letter Starbucks sent the National Labor Relations Board. Starbucks is really doesn't want unions. Starbucks is really pissed at unions in the United States. In the letter, Starbucks said an unnamed career NLRB employee told the coffee company about the activity, which allegedly occurred in the board's St. Louis office earlier this year, while it was overseeing a union election at a Starbucks store in Overland Park, Kansas. The coffee giant alleges that the St. Louis Labor Board officials helped pro-union workers vote in person at its office when they did not receive mail-in ballots, even though Starbucks and the union had both agreed that store elections would be handled via mail-in ballot. But they still voted for the union. So they made the union voting more accessible, and now Starbucks is pissed? Dear God. Because observers were not present, no one can be sure who appeared to vote, whether NLRB personnel had inappropriate communications with voters, told them how to vote, showed them how to vote, or engaged in other undisclosed conduct, Starbucks wrote in a letter. The coffee giant has faced growing union push across its cafes in the past year. Some 314 U.S. Starbucks locations have seen workers petition the NLRB to hold union elections since late last year. More than 220 of those Starbucks stores have voted to unionize. So, Starbucks has long opposed unionization, like most corporations. Obviously, Amazon, Target. When I worked at Target, when I applied to Target, I never worked at Target. I applied but never got in. Because I'm not cool enough to work at Target. So Target had really had statements they wanted you to sign to try to avoid unionization. I know Walmart does as well. Anyways, dating back to CEO Howard Schultz's acquisition of the company in the late 1980s. From Amazon to Kellogg's Food, the U.S. is seeing a revival in the power of worker unions and collective bargaining. But many of the employees are seeing pushback from corporate offices. Meanwhile, it's... So Starbucks is trying to do everything they can to stop unions. I know this is a shock. So... This article is called Rethinking Guardianship, to protect disabled people's reproductive rights. So, because of the Roe v. Wade, guardianship provides a person the legal authority to make decisions for someone deemed quote-unquote incapacitated. As a recent Center for American Progress report illustrated, such an arrangement prevents disabled people and others from exercising their full reproductive freedoms. While states may use different terminology when discussing guardianships, the arrangements can be generally categorized into two broad categories. Guardianships that are focused on an individual, which involve the guardian making personal affair choices such as healthcare, living arrangements, and/or other legal decisions on the individual's behalf. Guardianship, or the other one is guardianships that are focused on property, calling conservatorships in some states involve the guardian handling an individual's financial matters, assets, and benefits. This report focuses on the guardianship of individuals, particularly as it relates to reproductive rights and autonomy. In 2021, pop star Britney Spears testified in court in her bid to gain independence from an almost 14-year conservatorship. I want to be able to get married and have a baby. I was told right now in the conservatorship, I'm not able to get married or to have a baby. Spears' conservatorship was terminated in November 2021. In California, the term guardianship is only used for minors. Thus, Spears' case was called a conservatorship, even though both her person and estate were reportedly controlled. Although her situation is unique in a number of ways, and her medical history is largely private, Spears' experience and the resulting Free Britney movement helped bring public attention to guardianships. So, at least 1.3 million disabled people are under guardianships in the United States. However, few comprehensive statistics exist to illustrate the pervasiveness of guardianships. And there are few guardrails to ensure disabled people retain their legal rights. In 2021, Elizabeth Warren and Bob Casey sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services urging it to increase oversight and improve data. A lack of resources for court oversight and insufficient due process in guardianship proceedings can create significant opportunities for neglect, exploitation, and abuse. Indeed, through news interviews, academic articles, and storytelling advocacy programs or projects, disabled women have made clear that guardianship is one of the significant tools used to suppress their ability to make decisions about their reproductive health or their bodies in general. Brittany was on forced birth control and miscarried soon after her wedding. Such as obtaining or utilizing contraceptives, receiving sexual education, accessing abortion care. This report analyzes how guardianships can significantly impinge on disabled individuals' reproductive rights. So, the process of initiating guardianship is typically begins after a family member or social worker, depending on the disabled individual's files a petition in court stating that the individual is incapacitated and requires a guardian. Different states define incapacity different. For example, Virginia's definition, along with those of other states, notes that poor judgment is not sufficient evidence for incapacity. It is usually defined in the context of mental capacity or decision-making ability. Guardianship proceedings often treat capacity as a static concept, meaning that, quote-unquote, if one does not have capacity for everything, then one doesn't have capacity for anything. Always a good sign. Did I say good sign? I mean bad sign. So once a guardianship petition is submitted, many states, although not all, take steps to ensure the individual understands the petition. Although definitions of incapacity vary among many states, many evaluate a person's functionality and cognition and the necessity of guardianship based on potential risks and harm. So, Richard Lavajo? I don't know. Anyways, legal director of disability rights in Texas, notes a large problem with this process. While a person with a disability needs a lawyer that will, quote-unquote, honor the expressed wishes of their client, the reality of guardianship cases is often that lawyers don't represent what a person with a disability wants, but instead superimpose the best interest standard. The best interest standard does not prioritize the disabled person's wishes, but instead was considered best for that individual. This process can be problematic because once a guardianship is granted, most courts remove many, if not all, of an individual's legal rights to make their own decisions, including their ability to hire their own lawyer. Instead, the courts appoint a guardian to make such decisions on their behalf, leaving the disabled person with little to no recourse to exercise personal autonomy in nearly all aspects of decision making. Many students with intellectual and developmental disabilities enter the school to guardianship pipeline through high school transition planning under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, of 1990. Students leaving high school are supposed to work with schools and their parent or guardian to go through a transition period during which rights are transferred directly to the student. Paid guardians are part of the problem. Yeah. However, this period, this transfer of rights process often results in school officials suggesting that parents become legal guardians of their young adult children. According to some studies, almost 60% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities aged 18 to 22 who receive publicly funded services have guardians, and report that schools often present guardianship as the main or default option to support young adults in decision making. Some school professionals may not provide parents any information on alternatives to guardianship. When guardianship is explored at this juncture, the school officials and parents are often unaware of the potential long-lasting consequences of guardianship. Some are, and some don't care. But, for instance, a disabled student under guardianship loses their rights to make decisions about their future education plans after high school, which counteracts IDEA's promotion of self-determination and independence. Parents who speak English as a second language or who are from low-income and marginalized communities may have even more difficulty accessing the necessary information about less restrictive alternatives to long-term guardianship. So, there is no federal legislation on guardianship, and while guardianship law varies across countries, states' general approach is largely similar. According to the National Center on Law and Elder Rights, almost every state notes that guardianship should only be used as a last resort when alternatives do not suffice and a person is found to be quote-unquote incapacitated. The majority of U.S. jurisdictions, 84%, require courts to consider less restrictive alternatives to guardianships. About 22% specifically mention supported decision-making as an alternative, an option explored in more detail later in this report. There are multiple types of guardians: family members, state-managed, public guardians, and privately managed guardians. In some states, professional guardians, such as private individuals or organizations, charge fees and are not typically subject to the same standards as public guardians who undergo training. So that's the paid guardian part of the problem that you're talking about there, Jinx Tiamat. In Virginia, for example, most individuals who under guardianship have private guardians, which can include family members who do not have to meet the same standards as the Virginia Public Guardianship and Conservator program. Although courts are required to consider less restrictive alternatives, such limited guardianships or support decision-making, they typically impose full guardianships, which are often overbroad and unwarranted. In full guardianships, the guardian makes all decisions for the person, including, but not limited to, decisions around health care, money, and lifestyle choices, which means you cannot transition if your guardian does not want you to transition. You cannot have an abortion if your guardian does not want you to have an abortion. You cannot get married if your guardian does not want you to get married. You cannot have contraceptive if your guardian does not want you to have contraceptive. You can't have your own job if your guardian does not want you to have a job. So many problems. Anyways, according to the Virginia guardianship data provided by the CAP by the Supreme Court of Virginia's Office of the Executive Secretary, an average of 96% of guardianships granted from 2015 to 2021 were full guardianships. It is also rare that an individual's rights are restored or that guardianship ends. In fact, guardianships usually terminate at the end of an individual's life. Some states, including Texas, allow for automatic reviews of guardianships and have instituted safeguards to encourage restoration of rights, but it is uncommon for an individual to be able to end their guardianship and get their fundamental rights restored. According to Virginia guardianship data, more than 4,000 guardianships were granted in the state between 2015 and 2021, and only 10 people were restored to capacity. Other legal arrangements, including healthcare powers of attorney, allow individuals to make decisions with disabled people directly. In many states, however, there's ambiguity about the authority of these agents compared to that of guardians. In Virginia's, options such as powers of attorney can only be used when the disabled individual has capacity to sign a contract, something not possible under guardianship. Moreover, guardians can often have full access to all individuals' health records, which enables them to make reproductive and all other health decisions for the person under guardianship. Guardians can also make decisions for individuals about who they can interact with, despite laws prohibiting this due to lack of court oversight and sometimes guardians' poor understanding of the law. This lack of oversight and enforcement mechanisms can infringe on individuals' rights to engage in intimate. I can't believe I read that wrong. Intimate and non-intimate relationships and friendships, as well as their ability to integrate into their communities. 36 states have passed the Uniform Adult Guardianship and Protective Proceedings Jurisdiction Act, which created reforms such as the right to social interaction, expand procedural rights, and clear decision-making standards. However, it also makes it easier to transfer guardianships between states, which may result in keeping people under guardianships for longer periods of time. A lot of information unavailable, but the authors focused on Texas and Virginia because in 2015, Texas became the first state to introduce alternatives to guardianship, while Virginia passed alternatives in 2020 and has a recognized model for public guardianship. The states are also home to 2 women interviewed for the report. This report analyzes national core indicators data, one of the only sources of nationwide data on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and guardianship, in both the weighted national average and within Virginia and Texas. There are caveats to this data. The NCI collects them by surveys in participating states to better understand people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who receive public services from developmental disability state agencies. The main responses from adults under guardianship come from surveys completed in person, meaning some of participants responded, "Don't know." This may be the case, for example, if someone does not know the type of guardianship they're in. There's also the potential risk of a guardian affecting how a participant responds if the participant lives with them. Additionally, as state participation is voluntary and states use slightly different sampling strategies, the weighted national average cannot be considered nationally representative. However, NCI data still provides insight into populations with intellectual and developmental disabilities under guardianship across the United States, especially because it does collect data on race and ethnicity. Previous analyses of NCI data note that among disabled individuals with guardians, Black people were more likely to have a public guardian than white or Hispanic people. In 2018 to 2019, in-person survey respondents under guardianship were less likely than the respondents without guardianships to make decisions regarding where to live, who to live with, and their daily schedule. People under guardianships were also more likely to live in group residential facilities than in their own homes. In fact, respondents who lived in their own homes were significantly less likely across various race and gender backgrounds to report being under guardianship. This might suggest a higher possibility of community integration for people not under guardianship, something required under the Supreme Court's ruling in Olmstead versus LC. Additionally, because very few individuals under guardianship live in their own homes, and because so many have a family member as their guardian, they may lose autonomy over their sexual rights, ranging from their rights to engage in relationships to their rights to have sex. By the way, I'm concerned with this in terms of assisted suicide as well. I don't know how guardianships would affect assisted suicide, and may make it easier for eugenics. But people under or at risk of guardianship face an additional threat to their reproductive freedom: the possibility of state-sanctioned forced sterilization. Brittany was not told her conservatorship was vulnerable, and she could have opted out years ago. The National Women's Law Center recently released a report showing that state-sanctioned forced sterilization of disabled people is allowed in 31 states and Washington, D.C. These laws, because eugenics, these laws allow another individual, most commonly a legal guardian, to petition a court for the sterilization of someone who is purportedly unable to provide informed consent, claiming that being sterilized is in the person's best interest. These laws, which emerged in the 1970s but have been adopted as recently as 2019, have proliferated under the guise of protecting disabled people and sterilizing them for their own good. In reality, they enact trauma and violence on their bodies and continue an ugly legacy of forcibly sterilizing disabled people, especially disabled people of color and disabled poor people, because eugenics and white supremacy. Even states that do not have explicit forced sterilization laws fail to affirm disabled people's rights to make decisions about sterilization. 2 states prohibit forced sterilization, but do so in a manner that prevents some people under guardianship from accessing voluntary sterilizations. Other states do not have specific guidance on forced sterilization, and it is unknown whether guardians in these states without their decision-making powers to get this procedure for people under guardianship without any judicial review. In states with explicit forced sterilization laws, forced sterilization is often built into the guardianship structures. In about half the states with forced sterilization laws, which is about 15, 16 states, the guardianship statute itself lays out when and how a guardian can petition a court for forced sterilization. Also makes them more vulnerable to sexual assault and rape, yeah. In other states, forced sterilization laws exist independently and could apply both to those who are under guardianship and those who are not under guardianship. Just let the levels of eugenics to sink in there. Even in these states, however, it is likely that these laws primarily affect people under guardianship. How they apply specifically to people who are deemed unable to make their own decisions about sterilization, a judgment that overlaps closely with the finding of incapacity used to place people under guardianship. In many states, people under guardianship who are subjected to forced sterilization have few procedural protections. In some states, forced sterilization proceeding can proceed even if the person under guardianship is not present, and even if they're unaware of the hearing. Some states have stronger procedural protections, although judges do not always follow the requirement in practice. Ultimately, however, procedural protections do not transform a forced sterilization into a voluntary one. No matter how strong the procedural protections are, these laws enable the violence of forced sterilization, empowering judges to make decisions regardless of the wishes of the people under guardianship. The more disturbing aspect is the haphazard oversight. Yeah. Sorry, there's other stories I have. So I might have to skim over this a little. I'm going to link the article. I'm going to link the article in case you want to read the whole thing. Yeah, and it gives recommendations. But yeah, my other concern, which may or may not have been mentioned, I may have skipped over it, but my other concern is a different eugenics thing, not forced sterilization, but assisted suicide. Disturbing experts troubled by Canadia's. Wow, I can pronounce states. Canada's euthanasia laws. So, Alan Nichols had a history of depression and other medical issues, but none were life-threatening. When the 61-year-old Caucasian was hospitalized in June 2019 over fears he might be suicidal, he asked his brother to bust him out as soon as possible. Within a month, Nichols submitted a request to be euthanized, and he was killed despite concerns raised by his family and a nurse practitioner. His application for euthanasia listed only one health condition as the reason for his request to die: hearing loss. So this is another example of assisted suicide being used to with very little oversight, being used to kill people who are disabled. Depression is now an acceptable cause, so he could put that in. Anyways, Alan was basically put to death, his brother Gary Nichols said. Disability experts say the story is not unique in Canada, which arguably has the world's most permissive euthanasia rules, allowing people with serious disabilities to choose to be killed in the absence of any other medical issue. Many Canadians support euthanasia. An advocacy group, Dying with Dignity, says the procedure is driven by compassion to end suffering and discrimination and desire for personal autonomy. But human rights advocates say the country's regulations lack necessary safeguards, devalue the lives of disabled people, and are prompting doctors and health workers to suggest the procedure to those who might not otherwise consider it. Equally troubling are instances in which people have sought to be killed because they weren't getting adequate government support to live. Okay, Canada is set to expand euthanasia access next year, so that's when the mental illnesses will be added. So, yeah, yeah, they missed Italy here, but Italy, he was hospitalized for suicidal concerns, wanted out, and they killed him. Yeah. So Belgium, Canada, Colombia, Luxembourg, Netherlands, New Zealand, and Spain, plus parts of Australia, and the first euthanasia case in Italy, which I covered in this, I think, was it last week? Where it was just, the person was like, I don't have access to stuff or autonomy, so I just want to die. And that sounds a lot like societal problems, forcing this person to not feel like their life is worth existing. And Italy was like, yeah, fine, that's good. Like, I like the idea, because bodily autonomy, I like the idea of assisted suicide, but the way society is now, it is just a tool to be exploited for euthanasia. Gay Afghan forced to watch Taliban behead his father, learning how to feel proud after escaping. So, Ahmad, who still remembers the panic he felt when the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan. Ahmad's own history made it unbearable. As a child, Ahmad was forced to watch as Taliban members murdered and beheaded his father in front of him. They left the body there, and I was so young I couldn't carry it. And nobody was touching him because they were thinking he doesn't deserve to be buried because he is Christian. Yes, that was last week, yeah. When Kabul fell to the Taliban a year ago on the 15th of August 2021, Ahmad knew he was going to be targeted because of his religious background, but being gay on top of that would put him at greater risk. So it sounds like this person escapes and seems to be one of many people who have spoken out about the danger, and some escaped, some have not, and have a lot of trauma from the Taliban. So, Saudi sisters found dead in Sydney, claimed asylum for sexuality and religion, but were denied. So, 2 Saudi sisters found dead in Australia. So, Australian authorities discovered the remains of Azra Abdullah Al-Sali and Amal Abdullah Al-Sali on 124-123 on the 7th of June in the Sydney suburb of Burwood. Police found their bodies after carrying out a welfare check, as the sisters owed thousands in rent to their landlord. The women had been dead for more than a month when they were found. Authorities have not been able to ascertain the cause of death or find any signs of forced entry into the apartment. They had fled Saudi Arabia together in 2017 and made their way to Australian asylum claims. One of the sisters was escaping forced marriage. Their applications were denied because of lack of sufficient evidence. Yeah. Yeah. So, straight rugby star Toby Rudolph explains why he shared gay experiences. I just love baby. So, this person seems to be a pan-romantic straight guy. That's what this seems from the story. So Rudolph initially opened up same-sex experiences in an interview on Sydney Morning. The rugby league star said at the time, despite identifying as heterosexual, love is love and I share it with everyone. I wanted to throw my support behind the community that has been there my whole life. I'm not too fussed to speak about anything about me. I'm not really scared of anything, letting people know about the things I do. He has had several times when he's been in a bar or a club and has kissed many gay men, saying he's open to both genders but only attracted to one of them. Like I said, I get the impression that this person is pan romantic or bi-romantic or something. but probably panromantic based on the descriptions, but straight. But it's just another rugby player just being more open about sexual and romantic feelings, which is important. So, Brazilians protest for democracy as Bolsonaro threatens elections. So, thousands of Brazilians flocked to the law school to a law school on Thursday in defense of the nation's democratic institutions in an event that carried echoes of a gathering nearly 45 years ago when citizens joined together at the same site to denounce a brutal military dictatorship. While the current manifestos do not specifically name Bolsonaro, they underscore the country's widespread concern that the far-right leader may follow in former U.S. President Donald Trump's footsteps and reject election results not in his favor in an attempt to cling to power. One manifesto read at Thursday's event garnered more than 800,000 signatures and warned that Brazilian democracy was under threat. We're at the risk of a coup, so civil society must stand up and fight against that to guarantee democracy. It's streaming for 2.5 hours reading news. I'm almost. I'm trying to weigh the time difference. So, Germany to introduce landmark self-ID laws. So, Germany's been doing a lot of pro-LGBTQ laws, just in general. I don't know much more to say about that. I ended up talking a little bit longer on on one of these articles. So, getting an abortion in Italy can be difficult. It's about to get much tougher, apparently. In the middle of leafy Roman suburb, a tattered billboard glows under the scorching summer heat. I am against abortion, it reads, accompanied by a black and white picture of the late film director Pier Paolo Pasolini. The use of Pasolini, an avowed progressive gay man, in an anti-abortion advertisement has not been well received by some, who have vandalized the poster by ripping it at the side. After all, in this Mediterranean country, abortion is still a thorny issue. The right to terminate a pregnancy in Italy has been in place since 1978 and is recognized by the Constitutional Court as an unalterable binding law. But as Catholicism still exerts a powerful sway on social mores, resulting in high rates of medical staff refusing to carry out abortions, what is technically a right can often feel like something someone has to fight for. As a government crisis-ridden Italy now hurtles towards a fresh set of general elections, where a conservative far-right is likely to win, bolstered by the revocation of Roe v. Wade in the U.S. and populist conservative movements in Europe who are staunchly anti-abortion, an already complex situation could become even more precarious. So they're instituting a form of eugenics and fighting against abortion because white nationalism is creeps everywhere. So, together with 22 other EU member states, Italy gives its doctors the right to abstain from performing abortions, which are legally available to all pregnant women up to 90 days from conception, following an obligatory 1-week waiting period. The right by the way, it seems a bit much, but anyways, the right to conscientious objection is enshrined in Article 9 of Law 194, which states that health and assistant personnel are not required to take part interventions for the termination of pregnancy when conscientious objections are raised. But according to some pro-abortion campaigners, frequent misapplication of the provision has created a challenging situation where many women are essentially barred from accessing the services they need to obtain an abortion. As of 2020, 64.6% of gynecologists in Italy are conscientious objectors, a figure which soars to over 90% in parts of the south of Italy, while the nationwide percentage has decreased slightly since 2019, it has broadly grown over the years. In 2005, for instance, it stood at 58.7%. Yeah. Oh god. And it's all medical. It includes pharmacists too. So here in Rome, I prescribe women the morning after pill, Scassoletti recounted, and they would often come back to me with their hair standing on end after the local pharmacy rejected their request. One time we even had to get law enforcement involved. Women need to learn to fight for themselves and their rights, she added. Many of these objectors of conscience should be called objectors of convenience instead, she said. As a non-objecting doctor, I have felt judged. People are afraid not to be objectors, and as they worry it could affect their careers. Indeed, objections on the ground of conscience have not stopped gynecologists from carrying out abortions, just under the rug. Finding non-objecting gynecologists is a treasure hunt. Yeah, making it harder and harder, because of course, and that sounded. Yeah. So, Maldives police arrest 4 men and target dozens more overtly gay sex videos. So, police arrested a Bangladeshi sex worker on the 12th of July, who they claimed filmed encounters with men with intentions to blackmail them. So in the Maldives, engaging in same-sex relations is a crime punishable by up to 8 years in prison and, under Sharia law, 100 lashes. Officials have detained 20 people, and yeah, including 2 religious leaders and a former member of parliament. So, trans pilots can take to the skies after Indian flight regulator overturns ban. So, previously, I think I may have covered this as well. India had laws to prevent trans people from flying planes. Adam left India to go to school in South Africa, but things came to a halt when he came out as trans, and his parents cut him off financially. Still determined to get his pilot's license, he managed to win funding from Kerala state government and complete his studies, but he was declared unfit to fly in 2020 after a medical examination found he was on hormone therapy. He was then reportedly told he would be only able to proceed if he stopped taking HRT. It was like choosing between my career and my gender identity. Now Harry can proceed with his career after India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation introduced fresh guidelines for trans pilots on Wednesday, 10th of August, setting out medical criteria for people undergoing HRT. The new guidelines apply to student and private licenses and any individual who identifies as trans must have completed more than 5 years of gender affirming hormone therapy to be declared medically fit to fly. They must also pass a further mental health screening that all aspiring pilots are required to undertake. Yeah, pilot started 2 weeks ago. So with the new guidelines, Harry's closer to piloting his first commercial flight. But he will still have to undergo psychological and psychiatric evaluation from an endocrinologist and an examination to check if he has undergone surgery within a year of the application. So, yes, that's good, but also the guidelines are way too strict for flying a plane. Yeah, 5 years. 5 years is way too much. Serbian bishop calls for armed attack on LGBTQ plus people. If I had a weapon, I would use it. A senior bishop in Serbia has been condemned for encouraging armed attacks against LGBTQ plus pride event in Belgrade. In September, the Serbian capital will host Europride, which celebrates LGBTQ plus rights across the continent, in a first for a southeastern European country. But Serbian Orthodox Church Bishop Nikanor Bogdanovic of Banat, a region that covers parts of Serbia, Romania, and Hungary, has vowed to curse all those who attended the week-long festival. I will curse all those who organize and participate in something like that, Nikanor said in remarks made on the 11th of August, according to Balkan Insight. I can do that much. If I had a weapon, I would use it. I would use the force if only I had it, but I do not. He added that Europride participants will come to Belgrade and flaunt and desecrate the city of Belgrade, the holy Serbian city, and that we raise our voice against such people. Yeah, 3 days after those comments, chants of hands off our children and stop the parade of shame boomed throughout the streets in protest of Europride. Though the days when nearly half of Serbians considered being gay and mental illness are long gone, officials remain sluggish to tackle homophobia, while religious leaders consider LGBTQ plus rights a degenerate Western plot. I see. Ugandan government shuts down vital LGBTQ plus rights group amid chilling witch hunt. Since 2004, Sexual Minorities Uganda has advocated for the rights of sexual minorities in Uganda, where homosexuality is illegal and queer people are prosecuted. Among its actions, in 2010, it successfully obtained a court order preventing a newspaper from printing details of gay Ugandan men under the headline, "Hang Them." On Saturday, the 6th of August, my birthday, a government official said that smug operations had been suspended. God damn it. Why do bad things always happen on my birthday? Had been suspended with immediate effect because it was running without a valid permit, according to Reuters. In response, Smug said it attempted to register with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau in 2012, but was denied because its name was considered undesirable. Yeah, it's So they looked for an excuse to shut it down, and they shut it down. So disabled spectators told to move so they would not be in Commonwealth Games photos. So Commonwealth Games organizers have been accused of shocking, quote-unquote shocking discrimination. Not that shocking, it's pretty common. After disabled spectators were told to move from an accessible viewing area so they would not be seen in photographs of a table tennis medal ceremony. They are reserved for disabled spectators, was directly behind the medal rostrum at the NEC in Birmingham. And staff cleared it in advance of the award of medals after the men's singles final on Monday morning. Dr. Paul Dark, co-founder of the disability arts organization Outside Center, was one of the disabled spectators watching the final and had attempted to move into the empty space behind the rostrum. But he was told by a staff member to move so you're not in the photos. He then realized that all the other disabled spectators had been cleared from the area. He was told, "We want you to move so you're not in the photos when they take pictures of the medal winners." Dark then realized that non-disabled people were sitting just behind and above this accessible area had been allowed to remain in their seats. He said, "At any sports event, there are normally a crowd behind every single scene. It is just because they had the opportunity to do it that they did it, and it was because it was disabled people. There were non-disabled people above us, and they didn't move, so it was inexcusable." He had, "The most annoying thing was I let them do it. I was shocked and incredulous at what had happened, but afterwards I blamed myself for letting them do it." That's overly harsh on yourself, and it's self-blaming. It's not your fault that you've got the extra pressure and societal pressure not to make a scene and all sorts of stuff. Non-disabled people wouldn't have put up with it, but we're used to it and often don't complain in the moment. It was just incredibly disappointing. Dark is now writing to the Commonwealth Games to lodge a complaint about how disabled people were treated, and he'll point out what happened contrasted with Birmingham's 2022 message of inclusivity. He said the dialogue from the games from the very beginning from the very beginning to the end was about inclusivity, and then to experience that was just like a gaping hole of practice over policy and principle. It was just a counter to everything that had been said. He also pointed out access problems within the accessible viewing area, as some wheelchairs really did have to stretch and struggle to see over the top of railings, an issue that was also raised at the 3x3 basketball event. A Birmingham 2022 spokesperson said of the medal ceremony issue, "This is the first time this has been raised to us." Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyways, yeah. So, drag queens in UK pelted with groomer and molester slurs after school cancels Pride event. So, Nottingham drag queens Seven and Lingerie have revealed how they were called groomers and molesters after a secondary school canceled their youth-friendly Pride event over alleged adult content on social media. They say the massive wave of homophobic backlash made them feel like people wanted to murder them. The duo contacted the Toot Hill School in Nottingham, which previously they'd both attended back in March to arrange a visit to celebrate Pride this year. The event would have been for all 5-year groups at the secondary school and potentially allow them to share their experiences as members of the LGBTQ plus community with hundreds of students. But just a week before the planned visit, the Queens received an email abruptly canceling the event. The email sent by the school, seen by Pink News, said, after viewing the flyers, concerns were raised that students would be able to find unsuitable content for under 18-year-olds if they were to look on social media. School added it wouldn't be able to run the activity as it has strict safeguarding protocols to adhere to, and this is deemed unsuitable for our students. When asked by Pink News about the unsuitable content on social media, the school did not provide any examples. The drag queens were asked the same question, but were given no further explanation either. Yeah, it's a lot of awful, and also anti-LGBTQ plus hate crime reports explode across the UK, damning police figures confirm. Anti-LGBTQ plus violence in UK is rising at record-breaking rate. Reports of homophobic hate crimes more than doubled in 5 years, shooting from 10,000 in 2016 to 2017 to 26,824 in 2021 to 2022. In the past year, the figure soared by 32%, the biggest yearly rise since record-keeping began. Transphobic hate crimes similarly swelled by 240% from 1,292 reports in 2016 to 2017 to 4,399 5 years later, and was also believed to be the largest increase seen by authorities. Merseyside police showing highest rise from 64 and 24 to 2015 to 1,618 between 2021 and 2022. London has emerged as the epicenter of hate crimes based on sexual orientation. The Metropolitan Police tallied 3,794 homophobic hate crimes in 2021 to 2022, an increase of 28% from the previous year. Derbyshire, Humberside, Northamptonshire, South Yorkshire, and Suffolk were the only regions that saw hate crimes dip compared to the previous year, but the stats are still higher than 5 years ago. England's capital saw 434 hate crimes in the past year. Once again, the highest number recorded by a police force. Manchester followed with 320 hate crimes fueled by hatred for a person's gender identity. East England charity the Kite Trust is aiming to make life for LGBTQ plus youths and young adults easier. It's an inclusive swimming pool in East England. Sorry, I'm skipping to the last two stories. And by the way, I am glad I learned how I at least might be closer to the pronunciation of Edinburgh. Edinburgh? Whatever. Unacceptable Jerry Sadowitz Edinburgh show is cancelled over extreme racism, sexism, and homophobia. The comedian has been booked to perform at one of the Fringe's largest venues, the Pleasance, for 2 nights starting on 12th of August, but on the 13th of August, the show was officially canceled. Although there was an official content warning for strong language and themes some may find distressing, audience members felt the jokes went too far. One audience member told the Scottish Sun, "I was at the show. He called Richie Sunak P-slur. That's got to be something anti-Pakistani, anti-Indian. I don't know. I forgot which country Richie Sunak's relatives are from. Said the economy was awful because it is run by blacks and women. Oh dear God. He got his penis out to a woman in the front row. The problem was not the audience. I wish he was an acquired taste, but it was his indefensible content. Due to numerous complaints, we became immediately aware of content that was considered, among other things, extreme in its racism, sexism, homophobia, and misogyny. We will not associate with content which attacks people's dignity, and language used on stage was, in our view, completely unacceptable. Interchanging world stories and language that were once accepted on stage, whether performed in character or not, need to be challenged. There's a line that we will not cross at the Pleasance, and it was our view that this line was crossed on this occasion. Yeah. So, last, good news. Scotland becomes the first country to give free period products regardless of gender. Scotland has become the first country in the world to protect the rights of free menstrual products for all who need them thanks to new inclusive piece of legislation. Scotland has been amazing lately. Germany has been all right, at least. Anyways, proposed in 2017 and unanimously passed in 2020, the Period Products Free Provision Act 2021 came into force on Monday. Scotland has provided free period products to school students since 2017, but the act will now mean councils and educational providers must legally provide them for free to all people who need them regardless of age, gender, or income. The entire act is written using gender-neutral language, and the explanatory notes lay out the trans-inclusive nature of the legislation. By defining a person's needs in terms of menstruation by the person, this section ensures that it applies to trans and non-binary people who menstruate, and not just women and girls. The Act's Equality Impact Assessment, also released on Monday, acknowledges trans people may experience greater difficulty accessing period products because menstruation is now associated with their gender identity, and that this may impact their well-being and can be a source of stress, anxiety, and dysphoria. It's not just shortbread, cookies, and puppies. It continues, not everyone who menstruates identifies as female. Therefore, as part of ensuring a dignified approach, responsible bodies must ensure that the arrangements put in place to meet their duties allow any individual who menstruates, including trans men and non-binary individuals, to access products. The guidance says the language is used in any consultations and delivery of the products should also be considerate of sex and gender identities, and in some cases, men may wish to access products for free for family members or partners. In practice, this is likely to require products to be available for free in, for example, at least some gender-neutral toilets, disabled toilets, where these are recommended for use by people who menstruate, but do not wish to use female toilets or male-only spaces. So, yeah. Yeah, so, well, not always necessarily super successful. I like to try to end on a good note. Um, so, I'm in the Rachel Denise portion.
Justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Sex and race, because they are easy, visible differences, have been the primary ways of organizing human beings into superior and inferior groups and into the cheap labor on which this system still depends.
No, you all tell me to go and hide my tail between my legs. I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way? What the fuck's wrong with you all?
We want no more segregation. We will accept no more discussion of segregation. And I would appreciate it if you would stop shaking your head in agreement when I don't think you understand what we are talking about.
Freedom is merely privilege extended unless enjoyed by one and all.
All we are doing with this bill is allowing two people who love each other to have that love recognised by way of marriage. That is all we are doing.
I speak not for myself, but for those without voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace.
Sometimes, especially in this body, I feel as though if Christ himself walked through these doors and said what he said thousands of years ago, he would be maligned as a radical and rejected from these doors.